Is your neighborhood increasing or decreasing in home prices? Let's take a look. Hello, welcome to the Hatch Homes Group's Monday Market Update again. Michelle and Randolph here. And we're really excited because the Portland Monthly Magazine came out with its Neighborhood by Numbers article, which they do every year. And it's so fascinating. It breaks down, it tells the story of the city. It breaks it down by numbers and the increase and decrease by neighborhoods for price point. So anyway, they collaborate with PSU and basically their geography research department, and they pull a lot of data and analyze what has sold, what has not sold, and all sorts of key points that we'll link the article below so you can read and see where they got that information. And it is fascinating. I definitely recommend reading it.
It's quite the contrast.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty extreme. So let's dig in. So again, this is showing the median home prices, not appreciation, not to be confused with depreciation or equity. This is simply pricing. And it's extreme, right?
Mm-hmm. It sure is. Obviously, in the 2024 graph.
Yeah. I guess map.
Let's say map. It's blue. Compared to last year, 2023, it's relatively red, meaning there was a lot of price increases.
Yeah, and this is really telling a story about the market, right? So we're going to dive into, let's look at the 2024 map, which is really blue, really blue. And that's showing anywhere from a 5 or, some decreasing in pricing. And then you see these very few hot spots that are red, and they've increased by 10% or more. And when you look at that, flipping back to 2023, the neighborhoods that really stand out are the Irvington, Arlington Heights, as well as St. John's and some other neighborhoods. But I think we should talk about the Hollywood district because it was in the decrease mode, 10% decrease in 2023 from 2022. And now it's the 10% increase. It's the hot area. Right. So why is this so extreme? What happened? Well, obviously, COVID happened, and the Hollywood district really took a hit, right? All through that corridor, that Broadway corridor, there were so many businesses that shut down, and it was sad. Empty buildings, a lot of abandoned things.
It's one of my favorite neighborhoods.
Yeah, we both used to live in that neighborhood.
It's such a commuter neighborhood, but as you can tell, 2024, it's red, increasing. Of course, it's starting to revive, come back to life.
Yeah, because and same with the Irvington area, those were always the pretty affluent areas, but when you see more crime coming in because of the derelict buildings, that's what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So we're reviving, and I think it's really cool to see all these overall because it shows a market and correcting itself, like we talked about last week, right? We're correcting, and I think it's really important for us to see that and remember that in a market that had such inflated prices, you're of course going to see that correction to go down to showing decreases.
And I think we just want to make sure we emphasize it's a correction. It's not a market crash. It's totally different from what 2008 was.
Absolutely. That's so important. Yeah. That's really important. So yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about that balancing. We're talking about the peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. And each neighborhood really has something so cool to offer in Portland. That's why people love to live here, right? Mm-hmm. We have different little pockets that offer different experiences and ways of life. And I mean, let's look at the Arlington Heights area, right? So that's the West Hills, historically an affluent part, and yet it still is increasing. And I think that has a lot to do with our livability in being in Central City versus up in the hills where it's not as commuter or not a lot of commercial buildings that were vacant. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why we see a big increase there. And then St. John's.
Yeah, one of my favorite neighborhoods.
Yeah,
right? It was very trendy, and currently it's in the blue. But last year it had a 10% increase. A very trendy neighborhood. Yeah. I feel that St. John's neighborhood is going to be very similar to what Hollywood District was experiencing.
Yeah, they're totally different spots, but definitely seeing and also remembering certain neighborhoods have their time, right? Like they have these moments of being the hot spot and the place that people want to live. And so you see super competition driving the prices up. And then when that cools off and that's saturated, right, that area is saturated. So like there's not a lot to choose from, or people get over it or whatever. Like that's another correction that we see. And so I think that that's really the importance of looking at these two maps and seeing those extreme differences is really about the market correcting itself. It's not a crash. It has nothing to do with your equity either. Like that is something that we really want to drive home, because this is not about like you losing equity. This is simply pricing. And if you're in real estate, right,
Yep.
you buy your home, you're in it for the long game.
Yep. So the concept is buy and hold. So.
Buy and hold. Yeah, remember that, because it is definitely a long game. And I think it's a really good thing. We're seeing balance in pricing. It's becoming more steady. And I think that that's a trend that we're probably going to follow. It'll be really interesting to see what these maps look like next year.
Same here. Absolutely.
Yeah, so tune in. Let us know if you have any questions. We're going to link these articles below. And let's talk about it. It's really interesting. We love these conversations. So reach out and we can talk about the neighborhood you want to live in.